Absolute, suffocating despair. That is the only way to describe the pathetic final moments of Han Yujin. In a world that measures a man's exact worth by his awakened stats, Yujin was the ultimate joke. An F-class hunter. A useless, dragging burden. Society treated him like absolute garbage. The elite nobles laughed at him. The high-tier guilds spat at his feet. But the worst part wasn't the disrespect. The worst part was watching the only person who ever gave a damn about him, his S-rank little brother, die right in front of his eyes just to protect his useless life. As the boss monster prepares its final fiery breath to wipe Yujin from existence, he doesn't close his eyes. He doesn't cry. He stares at the supreme boss drop glowing in his brother's bloody hand, the wish stone. With his final rattling breath, Yujin doesn't beg the heavens for salvation. He begs for a second chance to shatter the hierarchy. He crushes the wish stone, shattering it into a million blinding red fragments. The dungeon violently dissolves into pure, consuming white light. He expects the cold embrace of the afterlife. Instead, he wakes up violently gasping for air in a cheap, rundown apartment. He instinctively reaches for his shoulder. His arm is back. The calendar on the wall reads exactly 5 years in the past. He survived. The apocalypse hasn't fully consumed the world yet. But to society, he is still just pathetic, worthless F-class trash. Before the shock can even settle, a blinding blue interface burns directly into his vision. Yujin doesn't panic, he smiles, a cold, terrifying smile. In his past life, he was the world's favorite punching bag. "Yeah, pretty." He tried to play by their rules and lost everything. In this life, he's not going to pick up a sword. He's going to build an untouchable army of apocalyptic gods and crush the elites under their massive claws. Without wasting a single second, Yujin heads straight to the illegal monster black market. He needs his first weapon, not a dagger, a monster. He ignores the flashy, expensive magical beasts and stops dead in his tracks in front of a rusted, filthy cage. Inside is a sickly dying, heavily mutated horned flame lion cub. To the rest of the world, it's a worthless, unawakened runt. A mistake of nature, but the world is blind. Yujin's system eyes activate, pulling up the hidden data. It's an SSS-Rank catastrophe waiting to happen. He buys it for absolute pennies. He names the tiny cub Peace. This is his anchor. The first creature he will protect with his life. The only thing in this rotting world he will show genuine mercy to. But the world never lets trash walk away quietly. A massive, arrogant, B-rank thug named Bak steps into the alleyway, completely blocking the exit. Bak is an elite, a bully who makes a living stepping on the weak. He spits on Yujin's shoes, eyeing the trembling cub with extreme disgust. "Look at this F-class garbage collecting literal garbage." Bak sneers. "Hand over the meat, loser. My hunting hounds need a live snack." Bak reaches a massive, calloused hand out to crush the tiny lion's skull. In his past life, Yujin would have dropped to his knees. He would have begged and cried. Not today. Yujin doesn't try to reason with him. He doesn't waste breath on a warning. He violently twists the arrogant B-rank hunter's arm, while snapping the thick bone completely in half like a dry twig. Before Bak can even process the impossible pain, Yujin drives a ruthless kick straight into his kneecap, bending it entirely backward. The massive thug crashes into the filthy dirt, crying in agony. The two goons freeze in sheer, unadulterated terror, their weapons shaking in their hands. They can't comprehend what just happened. An F-class just broke a B-rank elite in less than 2 seconds. Yujin stares down at the pathetic, crying bully. He speaks with absolute, chilling authority. "Touch my monster again, and I'll feed you to it, piece by piece." He casually steps over the shattered B-rank elite and walks out of the alleyway without looking back. The first blood has been drawn, and his system is just getting started. Without wasting a single second, Yujin plunges directly into the underworld. The official Hunter Association won't sell anything to an F-class loser, so he heads straight to the illegal monster black market. He needs his very first weapon, not a rusted dagger, not a cheap magic staff. He needs a monster. The elite hunters around him are dropping millions of dollars on flashy, fully grown beasts. They shove Yujin aside, scoffing at his F-class badge. But Yujin isn't looking for a fully leveled pet. He is looking for a glitch in the world's hierarchy. He walks past the premium cages and stops dead in his tracks in the absolute filthiest corner of the market. There, inside a rusted, blood-stained cage no bigger than a shoebox, lies a sickly, dying, heavily mutated horned flame lion cub. To the rest of the world, this creature is a joke. A genetic mistake. The merchant kicks the rusted bars, sneering at Yujin. Look at this F-class garbage staring at literal garbage. That mutated rat is going to die by tomorrow. Move along, loser. You're ruining my business. The world is utterly blind. They rely on their primitive mana detectors. But Yujin has the system. His eyes lock onto the dying animal, and the hidden data violently overrides reality. Yujin's lips curl into a cold, terrifying smirk. It's an SSS-Rank catastrophe waiting to happen. The merchant thinks he's scamming an idiot, but Yujin buys the literal god of destruction for absolute pennies. He carefully wraps the trembling cub in his jacket, naming it Peace. This is his anchor, the first creature he will protect with his life. The only thing in this rotting, arrogant world he will ever show genuine mercy to. But the world never lets trash walk away quietly. Before Yujin can even leave the slums, a towering, heavily muscled B-rank hunter named Bak steps into the alleyway, completely blocking his path. Bak is flanked by two armed, sneering goons. This man is the epitome of the elite hierarchy, a bully who makes a living stepping on the weak, drunk on the illusion of his own power. Bak looks down at Yujin with extreme, undisguised disgust. "Well, look what we have here," Bak sneers, his voice dripping with venom. "An F-class rat scurrying through the mud? I saw you buy that piece of meat from the vendor. Hand it over, loser. My hunting hounds haven't eaten today and they love a live snack." In his past life, Yujin would have dropped to his knees. He would have begged, cried, and offered them everything he owned just to survive. He would have let the elites take what they wanted. Not today, never again. The power of a god surges through his supposedly weak veins. Yujin doesn't try to reason with the bully. He doesn't waste breath on a warning. As Bak's hand nears the cub, Yujin steps forward and grabs the B-rank hunter's massive wrist in midair. The arrogant smirk on Bak's face instantly vanishes as he realizes he cannot move his arm a single millimeter. It's like his wrist is clamped inside a hydraulic press. Yujin brutally twists the arrogant B-rank hunter's arm, snapping the thick bone completely in half like a dry twig. Before Bak can even process the impossible pain, the B-rank thug instinctively swings his glowing broadsword with his other arm, aiming to take off Yujin's head. But to Yujin's eyes, the attack is moving in slow motion. Yujin shatters the broadsword with a single casual flick of his fingers, then drives a ruthless, devastating kick straight into Bak's kneecap, bending the joint entirely backward with another sickening crack. The goons can't comprehend the nightmare unfolding in front of them. An F-class, the lowest garbage in society, just effortlessly broke a B-rank elite into pieces in less than 2 seconds. They back away, scrambling over each other to escape the monster wearing an F-class badge. Yujin stares down at the pathetic, crying bully choking on the mud. He doesn't yell. He speaks with absolute, chilling authority that freezes the blood in Bak's veins. "Touch my monster again, and I'll feed you to it piece by piece." He leaves the B-rank elite to rot in the alleyway. The first blood has been drawn. The hierarchy has been fractured. Yujin's SSS rank system is just getting started. The next morning, Yujin walks straight into the Viper's Nest, the National Hunter Association. This is the absolute center of power, the place where society dictates your entire worth based on your combat class. The elites parade around the lobby, flaunting their flashy magic and heavy broadswords. Yujin ignores all of them. He walks directly to the main registration desk, carrying the tiny, trembling, bandaged lion cub securely in his arms. The clerk sneers, pinching his nose as if Yujin's mere presence is infecting the sterile air. "Registration for an F-class? Make it quick. You're holding up the line for the real awakeners. What combat class did you desperately scrape together?" Yujin doesn't flinch. He slaps his registration form onto the marble counter. "No combat class. Register me as a monster caregiver." The elite hunters around him burst into tears of laughter. The mockery is instantaneous and absolutely brutal. A heavily armored A-rank tank shoves his way to the front, pointing a massive, steel-plated finger directly at Yujin's face. "A caregiver? The F-class trash actually registered as a glorified dog walker. Hey, loser, when you're done picking up that rat's droppings, my boots need shining." Let them laugh. Let them mock him. The audience knows the massive, terrifying secret that these arrogant fools are completely blind to. They think Yujin is throwing his life away to be a maid for a diseased puppy. They have absolutely no idea that the rat in his arms is a dormant god of destruction. Yujin picks up his approved registration card, turns his back on the laughing elites, hars and walks out the glass doors. The trap is officially set. Without wasting a single second, Yujin completely shuts out the world. The elites can waste their time posturing in the lobby. Yujin is going to break the system. The secret grinding phase begins. To the outside world, he is just feeding a puppy. But inside this room, the numbers are shattering reality. Yujin activates his SSS-Rank caregiver skill, manually forcing the cub's mana pathways to expand at an impossible rate. He whispers the activation keyword, sinking their souls. A month flashes by in a blur of blinding blue system screens and impossible stat boosts. The progression treadmill never stops, while the arrogant A-rank hunters are risking their lives in bloody dungeons just to gain a pathetic 10 stat points. Yujin is multiplying Peace's power by tens of thousands every single day from the comfort of his living room. The tiny, harmless-looking puppy is secretly becoming a walking, breathing nuclear bomb. When Yujin finally steps back out into the world, nothing seems to have changed. Peace is still perfectly disguised in his tiny, unawakened form. The information asymmetry is at its absolute peak. The Society of Elites sees the exact same F-class loser carrying the exact same useless pet. The elites continue to push him. They continue to sneer. They think they are the apex predators of this city. They look at Yujin's F-class badge and think he is completely defenseless. Yujin doesn't draw a weapon. He just stares dead into the arrogant student's eyes and gently strokes the puppy's fur. He knows a terrifying truth. He knows that all he has to do is snap his fingers, and the tiny creature in his arms will instantly transform, bite the noble in half, and burn this entire city block to absolute ash. Let them mock him. Let them enjoy their pathetic, fragile hierarchy for just a few more hours, because the alarm bells are about to ring, and the ultimate face slap is already locked and loaded. Peace is an illusion in a world ruled by monsters. Without a single second of warning, the sky tears open. An A-rank dungeon break doesn't just happen, it explodes into reality. Right in the absolute center of the financial district, reality shatters like cheap glass. A towering A-rank ironhide behemoth crashes onto the asphalt, immediately crushing 3 city buses beneath its massive, spiked hooves. This isn't just a monster, it is a walking natural disaster. The civilians scream in sheer, unadulterated terror, stampeding over each other to escape. But the National Hunter Association is right down the street. The elites are quick to respond. The elite squad arrives. These are the top 1%. The arrogant, wealthy, untouchable A-ranks who laughed in Yujin's face and called him a glorified dog walker. They look at the behemoth and smile. To them, this isn't a disaster. It's a photo opportunity. It's free experience points. Stand back, trash. The A-rank tank roars at the fleeing civilians, drawing a massive, glowing broadsword. Watch how the real awakened handle business. Vanguard, formation, mages, charge your ultimates. They throw absolutely everything they have. Tier 4 magic, explosive artillery, armor-piercing skills that cost more mana than an entire guild generates in a year. The intersection is entirely consumed in a blinding explosion of fire and lightning. The elites smirk, lowering their weapons. They think they've won. They think they are the apex predators. But the smoke clears and the nightmare begins. The behemoth isn't dead. It doesn't even have a single scratch on its armor. The Tier 4 magic merely annoyed it. The arrogant smirks on the elites' faces instantly vanish, replaced by a sickening, ice-cold realization of their own pathetic weakness. The monster doesn't just attack, it obliterates. It charges forward with the force of a bullet train. The A-rank tank raises his indestructible magical shield. It shatters into a million pieces like dry cardboard. The behemoth's horn pierces right through the tank's heavy armor, violently tossing the arrogant elite into the side of a concrete building. In less than 10 seconds, the impenetrable elite squad is completely massacred. The mages are crying, desperately trying to cast teleportation spells that the behemoth crushes with the stomp of its hoof. The vanguard fighters throw their expensive weapons on the ground and run for their lives, sobbing uncontrollably. Ambitsa's thought the absolute peak of the city's hierarchy is utterly broken. The A-rank tank, the man who demanded Yujin shine his boots, is now laying in his own blood, pissing himself in terror. Somebody help us, the tank screams, his voice cracking in absolute despair. Where are the S-ranks? We're going to die. Mommy, please, I don't want to die. He begs for salvation. He begs for a god to descend. But a god doesn't answer. Han Yujin does. The elites stare at him in sheer disbelief. The F-class trash, the dog walker. He is casually strolling through a battlefield that just massacred their entire elite squad, sipping an iced Americano. Are you completely insane? The bleeding tank screams from the rubble, his eyes wide with frantic panic. "Run, you useless F-class idiot! You're going to get us all killed!" The monster is going to step on you. Yujin doesn't run, he doesn't cower. He looks at the pathetic, crying elites who mocked him just weeks ago. He drinks the last drop of his coffee, tosses the plastic cup into the rubble, and gently sets the tiny, fluffy puppy down onto the cracked asphalt. "You guys really are loud," Yujin says, his voice cutting through the chaos with absolute chilling authority. He looks down at the tiny cub. "Playtime is over, Peace. Show them why they shouldn't bark at their betters." The elites watch in absolute confusion. Then, the system shatters reality. The tiny, harmless puppy doesn't just grow, it erupts. A pillar of blinding, apocalyptic red hellfire shoots directly into the clouds, completely engulfing the intersection. The sheer heat instantly vaporizes the falling rain. The A-rank behemoth, the monster that just destroyed the city's greatest heroes, suddenly freezes. Its primal instincts kick in. For the first time, the behemoth feels absolute, paralyzing fear. Peace is no longer a pet. He is an SSS-Rank god of destruction. The sheer pressure of his aura cracks the foundations of the surrounding skyscrapers. The behemoth tries to take a step back. It tries to run, but it is far, far too late. Without wasting a single millisecond, Peace lunges. The A-rank Ironhide armor, the same armor that casually deflected Tier 4 magic, is nothing but wet tissue paper against SSS-Rank hellfire. Peace's massive, magma-dripping jaws snap shut entirely around the behemoth's neck. With one effortless, brutal twist of his neck, Peace rips the behemoth's head completely off its shoulders. 1 second, that is all it took. The unstoppable disaster that brought the elite hierarchy to its knees was instantly and effortlessly decapitated like a cheap toy. The apocalypse ends as quickly as it began. Peace reverts to his tiny form, looking up at Yujin for a treat. Yujin reaches into his pocket, pulls out a premium monster snack, and casually pets the puppy on the head. "Good boy," Yujin whispers. The intersection is dead silent. The only sound is the rain hitting the cooling lava. The arrogant, untouchable elite hunters are frozen in a state of absolute, mind-shattering shock. Their worldviews have been violently ripped apart. The man they called trash. The man they threw coins at and told to clean their boots. He wasn't a dog walker. In a farm, he was the undisputed master of a creature that could wipe their entire guild off the face of the planet in less than 5 seconds. Yujin slowly walks over to the bleeding tank. He steps directly onto the severed head of the behemoth, looking down at the elite with a gaze colder than absolute zero. The F-class trash is standing above the A-rank elite, and the power dynamic has permanently shifted. "So," Yujin says softly, his voice echoing in the dead silence, "about those boots. Do you still want me to shine on them?" The tank cries in silent, humiliated terror. The face slap is absolute and undeniable. Every single elite in the intersection realizes the exact same horrifying truth. Han Yujin is not a joke. He is the new god of this world, and they just spent the last month begging him to kill them. Never let the tension drop to zero. There's absolutely no time for celebration. The exact moment the behemoth's severed head hits the pavement, the shockwave of Yujin's absolute supremacy ripples straight to the very top of the food chain. Hundreds of miles away, in the penthouse suite of a towering black skyscraper in the capital city, the guildmaster of the ruthless MKC Guild sits alone in the pitch dark. He is the apex predator of the country, a man who controls politicians, commands entire armies of S-rank hunters, and rules the underworld with an iron fist. But right now, his hands are violently shaking. He stares unblinking at the massive wall-sized monitor, watching the leaked security footage of Peace decapitating the behemoth on a continuous, looping replay. He doesn't see a hero saving the city. He sees an apocalyptic anomaly that just shattered his entire monopoly on power. In a world governed by strict rules, if a useless, pathetic F-class dogwalker can suddenly command an SSS-Rank beast, the elite hierarchy is fundamentally broken. The MKC Guild's absolute reign of terror is completely over unless this glitch in the system is erased. The Guildmaster crushes a premium wine glass in his bare hand. The sharp, violent sound of thick crystal shattering fills the silent room, but he doesn't even flinch as blood and glass shards drip onto his expensive carpet. He doesn't bother with a formal meeting. He doesn't negotiate. He speaks directly to the shadows in the corner of the room. 3 figures step forward, radiating a suffocating, toxic aura of pure killing intent. These are the MKC Guild's elite shadow assassins. Nameless, As faceless killers who have slaughtered entire rival guilds without leaving a single drop of evidence. I don't care how you do it. The guildmaster growls, his voice dripping with venom, desperation, and absolute fear. I want that F-class anomaly dead before he realizes his own strength. I want him dead before he breeds a monster army. Bring me his severed head, or I will personally feed your families to the dungeon hounds. The three assassins vanish into the shadows without a single word. The hunt is officially on, but the assassins aren't the only ones making a desperate move. The National Hunter Association is absolutely terrified. They realize they cannot control Yujin, so they decide they must imprison him in plain sight, under the thin, pathetic guise of offering him a special elite scholarship. They send an entire squad of high-ranking military police to forcibly escort the anomaly out of the slums. The front door of Yujin's apartment is violently kicked completely off its hinges. 20 heavily armored military elites pour into the small living room, their high-tech magical weapons drawn and pointed directly at Yujin's head. The commander of the squad steps forward, trying desperately to project authority. But under his heavy steel helmet, sweat is pouring down his face. Yujin is casually sitting on his cheap couch, gently feeding Peace a glowing A-rank mana crystal. He doesn't even look up at the 20 guns pointed at him. He knows exactly what this is. This is a gilded cage. A desperate, panicked attempt by the elites to keep the monster locked securely under their microscope. Han Yujin, you are being immediately relocated, the commander barks, his voice trembling slightly despite himself. Pack your things and come quietly, or we will be forced to use lethal measures. They point their heavy weapons at him, pretending they actually have the upper hand. Yujin doesn't blink. He slowly stands up from the couch. In perfect unison, the entire heavily armored military squad instinctively takes a terrified step backward. Their weapons visibly shake in their hands. They saw the footage. They know what the tiny puppy in Yujin's arms can do. Yujin simply grabs his jacket, tucks Peace into his pocket, and walks right past the trembling commander with a cold, mocking smirk. He doesn't fight them. He welcomes the escort. Around, the starter village is officially way too small for his ambitions, and it is time to step into a much larger arena. Skipping the useless travel and boring pleasantries, Yujin arrives directly at the absolute pinnacle of the empire. A massive floating fortress in the sky comes into view, casting a huge shadow over the capital. This is the S-Rank Awakener Academy. It looks like a futuristic military base crossed with an opulent royal palace. The baseline power level here is utterly absurd. In the outside world, a B-rank hunter is treated like a king. Inside these walls, a B-rank is nothing more than a janitor. Every single student walking the grounds is a generational prodigy, a corrupt noble heir, or a future guildmaster. The air itself is thick with suffocating lethal mana pressure. Yujin walks casually through the towering golden gates. The elite students immediately stop their sparring and stare at the newcomer. Their eyes lock onto the pathetic F-class badge pinned to his cheap jacket, and then to the seemingly harmless puppy sleeping lazily in his arms. The whispers start instantly. They sneer, point, and laugh openly. The cycle of arrogant ignorance is completely unbreakable. The government heavily censored the news of the behemoth's brutal death to prevent mass panic, so these pampered, arrogant S-rank brats have absolutely no idea who just walked into their academy. They look at Yujin and see fresh meat. They assume the rumors of a monster tamer are completely exaggerated, or that he used a rare, one-time, consumable artifact to survive the city attack. The information asymmetry instantly resets to maximum. A group of upperclassmen deliberately block his path. Their leader, a tall, blonde noble radiating intense A-rank fire magic, scoffs at Yujin, looking at him like a stain on the pavement. So this is the famous F-class charity case? Look at him. He brought a dirty street rat into a dragon's den. They truly think he is a fluke. They think he is pathetic, weak, and defenseless. They are making the absolute worst mistake of their miserable, short lives. Yujin looks at the arrogant nobles. He looks at the massive, heavily fortified academy surrounding him. His system interface violently pulses to life in his vision, flashing with a terrifying, blinding blue light. Yujin smiles. It's the exact same cold, ruthless smirk that always precedes an absolute massacre. These nobles think they just locked a helpless rabbit in a cage full of starving lions. They have absolutely no idea they just locked themselves inside a slaughterhouse with an untouchable god. The stakes are instantly cranked up 10 times higher, and the ultimate face-slapping loop is about to begin all over again. Before Yujin completely shatters this academy, pause for a second. The system is expanding, and Yujin is building his own SSS-Rank army. Drop a comment right now telling me exactly which mythical monster you would tame as your starter beast. Hit that like button to feed Peace a premium mana crystal, and absolutely obliterate the subscribe button so you don't miss the global server war. The elites are about to get slaughtered, so secure your spot on the winning side right now. Let's get back to the bloodbath. The S-Rank Awakener Academy is not a school, it is a meat market. A highly fortified, glittering breeding ground where the top 3 guilds of the country pick off the strongest students like vultures circling a fresh carcass. The moment Yujin steps foot into the grand marble atrium, he is entirely surrounded, not by students, but by the apex predators of the country's hierarchy. The elite guild leaders and vice masters have personally come to see the anomaly. They don't come to welcome him. They come to leash him. The Vice Master of the White Tiger Guild, a man radiating a suffocating lethal S-rank aura, steps directly into Yujin's path. He is flanked by a dozen heavily armored bodyguards. He doesn't offer a handshake. He casually throws a thick, gold-embossed contract directly onto the floor at Yujin's feet, expecting the F-class trash to drop to his knees and pick it up. "Sign it," the Vice Master sneers, his voice dripping with unquestionable authority. "We don't know what kind of illegal artifact you used to kill that behemoth, and we don't care. You are an F-class liability. Without the absolute protection of a top-tier guild, you won't survive a week in this academy. We will take your little fire puppy, put it to actual use in our vanguard, and pay you a generous stipend to stay out of the way. You belong to the White Tiger Guild now." The entire atrium goes dead silent. The elite students watch with bated breath, entirely expecting the F-class nobody to crumble under the sheer, terrifying spiritual pressure of an S-rank vice master. They expect him to cry in gratitude. They expect him to submit to the natural order of the world. Yujin doesn't drop to his knees. He doesn't even look at the gold-embossed contract on the floor. He looks dead into the vice master's eyes, and he smiles. It is a cold, piercing, utterly disrespectful smirk that completely shatters the tension in the room. Yujin slowly steps forward, deliberately placing his cheap, muddy shoe directly onto the center of the elite contract, smearing dirt across the golden ink. "I think you misunderstand how this works," Yujin says, his voice completely flat, completely devoid of fear. "I didn't come to this academy to join your pathetic retirement homes. And if you ever talk about taking my monster again, I won't just break your legs. I will burn your entire guild headquarters to the ground while you watch." The sheer, unapologetic disrespect hits the atrium like a physical shockwave. The Vice Master's face violently contorts in absolute rage. His S-rank mana erupts, cracking the marble floor beneath his boots. The bodyguards draw their weapons, but Yujin simply turns his back on the apex predator of the country and casually walks away, leaving the elite guild leader humiliated in front of hundreds of students. He refuses every single top guild without a second thought. He doesn't need their protection. He is the danger. As a mandatory reward for entering the elite academy, Yujin is granted one single entry into the Imperial Vault, a massive underground fortress holding the greatest magical artifacts recovered from the highest tier dungeons. The arrogant S-rank instructor assigned to escort him leads Yujin down the spiraling, heavily guarded staircase. "Listen closely, trash," the instructor spits, entirely infuriated by Yujin's earlier arrogance. "You get one item. Don't even look at the S-rank weapons. Your pathetic F-class body couldn't even lift them without snapping your spine. Pick a low-tier healing ring and get out of my sight." The massive titanium vault doors grind open, revealing a blindingly bright cavern of unimaginable wealth. There are literal mountains of S-rank magical broadswords glowing with elemental power. There are suits of armor forged from the scales of ancient dragons. There are staff that can summon meteors from the sky. The elite students and instructors watching on the security monitors scoff, waiting to see what pathetic, low-tier garbage the F-class will desperately grab to compensate for his weak body. Yujin walks right past the S-rank weapons. He ignores the glittering armor. He ignores the legendary staff. He walks past the premium artifacts, past the A-rank utility gear, and heads straight down into the absolute lowest basement level of the vault. The graveyard. This is where the academy dumps broken, useless, and cursed items that have entirely lost their magical value. The instructor follows him, laughing out loud. "What are you doing, idiot? Looking for a rusty spoon to defend yourself?" Yujin ignores him. His eyes are locked onto the darkest, dustiest corner of the massive room. Sitting on a cracked stone pedestal is a massive, pitch-black egg. It is entirely covered in a thick layer of unbreakable, centuries-old permafrost. It looks like a giant, useless rock. The lore of the Academy says it was pulled from an S-Rank glacier dungeon over 300 years ago. It has absolutely no mana signature. It is completely, undeniably dead. The Academy uses it as a decorative paperweight, but the world is completely, utterly blind. As Yujin steps within 5 feet of the frozen rock, his system interface violently detonates across his vision in a flurry of blinding blue light. Yujin's heart pounds against his ribs. The world sees a frozen paperweight. Yujin sees an apocalyptic god of ice just waiting to be woken up. He casually places his hand on the freezing, cursed egg. "I'll take this one," Yujin says perfectly calmly. The instructor stares at him for 3 seconds before bursting into hysterical, breathless laughter. The security room erupts into a chorus of brutal mockery. The news spreads through the academy in less than 5 minutes. The arrogant guild leaders, the elite students, instructors, they all laugh until their stomachs hurt. "He took the dead rock. The F-class idiot rejected the top guilds and took a frozen piece of garbage." The mockery is relentless. They call him a complete fraud. They declare that his victory over the behemoth was nothing but a lucky fluke, an anomaly they don't need to fear. They think he has completely lost his mind, hoarding a frozen piece of trash because he is too weak to wield a real weapon. The arrogant elites feel their fragile superiority instantly return. They strut around the academy, completely dismissing the threat. The information asymmetry hits an absolute fever pitch maximum. The audience knows exactly what that egg is, and watching the elites laugh at Yujin only builds a desperate, addictive craving for the inevitable, catastrophic face slap. Yujin lets them laugh. He hauls the massive, frozen egg back to his heavily fortified, isolated dorm room and locks the heavy steel door. He closes the blackout blinds. The room goes pitch black, illuminated only by the faint, terrifying blue glow of his system interface. Peace, his tiny flame lion puppy, hops onto the bed and watches curiously. The secret grinding phase begins immediately. Yujin doesn't have time to wait for nature. He is going to forcefully break the laws of life and death. He empties his entire inventory, dumping millions of dollars worth of extremely rare, high-grade fire attribute mana crystals onto the floor. He surrounds the freezing egg with a mountain of pure concentrated magical energy. He places both of his hands directly onto the permafrost shell. The cold is agonizing. It instantly begins to freeze the blood in his veins, creeping up his arms. In his past life, he would have died from frostbite in seconds. But Yujin doesn't flinch. He pushes through the excruciating pain, his eyes glowing with a terrifying, blinding intensity. "Wake up!" Yujin commands. The blue holographic screens spin violently around the room. The system aggressively drains the mountain of fire crystals, converting them into pure, raw life force and funneling it directly through Yujin's hands and straight into the dead core of the egg. The progression treadmill starts running at breakneck speed. The thick, centuries-old permafrost begins to violently crack and violently hiss, turning into plumes of dense white steam. The temperature in the dorm room fluctuates wildly between freezing cold and boiling heat. Yujin doesn't stop. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't eat. He aggressively forces the system to its absolute limits, pouring an ocean of magical energy into the shell. Hours bleed into days. Outside, the academy students continue to laugh, mocking his absence, assuming he is hiding in shame with his frozen rock. Inside the room, the numbers are shattering reality. Suddenly, a massive, echoing thump reverberates through the room. Yujin stops. He pulls his bleeding, frostbitten hands back. Thump, thump. It is a heartbeat. Slow, impossibly heavy, and radiating a suffocating, ancient power. The heartbeat of a creature that hasn't drawn breath in 300 years. The shell begins to splinter. Glowing, icy blue light violently leaks through the cracks, illuminating the entire room like a localized supernova. A concentrated aura of the creature inside causes the walls of the heavily fortified dorm room to instantly freeze over with thick layers of jagged ice. With a final, deafening shatter, the top of the egg violently explodes outward. A localized blizzard erupts directly inside the room, completely blinding the camera. When the freezing fog finally settles, the creature is revealed. It isn't a simple lizard. It is an absolute masterpiece of destruction. An ancient frost dragon hatchling. Its scales resemble flawlessly cut, unbreakable blue diamonds. Its eyes are glowing, bottomless pools of absolute zero. Even as a newborn, the terrifying primal pressure it exudes is enough to bring an S-rank hunter to their knees in sheer panic. The frost dragon looks around the room. It locks its glowing blue eyes entirely onto Yujin. It doesn't attack. It doesn't roar. It slowly lowers its massive diamond-scaled head and gently nudges Yujin's frostbitten hand. Yujin stands in the center of the freezing room, completely unfazed by the apocalyptic cold. Peace, the tiny puppy holding the power of hellfire, trots over and sniffs the new dragon. Fire and ice, the two most destructive elements in the universe, sitting casually at the feet of an F-class trash hunter. Yujin smirks, petting the icy scales of his new god. The arrogant academy students, the sneering guild leaders, the entire elite hierarchy. They think he is hiding. They think he is a defenseless joke, clinging to a piece of garbage. They have absolutely no idea that the moment he unlocks his dorm room door, the apocalypse is walking out with him. The S-Rank Awakener Academy's midterm combat exam is not a simple test of skill. It is a massive, highly publicized gladiatorial spectacle. The combat arena is the size of a professional football stadium, surrounded by towering, reinforced magical barriers. In the VIP skyboxes overlooking the dirt, the country's most powerful guildmasters, elite recruiters, and wealthy nobles gather to drink premium champagne and scout the next generation of monsters. Down in the arena, the atmosphere is dripping with suffocating arrogance. The elite A-rank and S-rank students strut onto the battlefield wearing millions of dollars worth of enchanted armor and wielding legendary glowing weapons. They boast loudly, laughing with each other, completely convinced that they are the untouchable apex predators of the future. And then there is Han Yujin. He stands completely alone in the corner of the massive stadium, wearing the exact same cheap, unmarked black jacket he wore on his first day. He doesn't have a weapon. He doesn't have a shield. Tucked casually inside his jacket is the tiny, fluffy golden puppy. Peace. To the elite students, Yujin looks like a pathetic walking joke, the ultimate charity case. The blonde A-rank noble from the courtyard spots Yujin and immediately starts laughing. He points his blazing, enchanted broadsword directly at Yujin's chest. "Hey, F-class!" the noble shouts, his voice echoing across the stadium to the amusement of the crowd. "Did you get lost on your way to the petting zoo? When the starting bell rings, I'm going to personally vaporize that rat in your jacket just to hear you cry." The other students erupt into cruel, mocking laughter. In the VIP skyboxes, the guildmasters chuckle into their wine glasses. They are all watching the F-class. They want to see the anomaly humiliated. They want to see the glitch in their perfect system violently erased. They have absolutely no idea that the timer on their lives has already run out. Without a single second of warning, the massive magical barriers surrounding the stadium violently flicker and turn entirely pitch black. The artificial sunlight above the arena cuts out. The massive steel doors of the stadium violently slam shut, locking with a deafening, earth-shaking thud. The cheering crowd goes dead silent. The arrogant smiles on the students' faces vanish instantly. This isn't part of the exam. Before the instructors can even react, the shadows in the very center of the arena begin to violently twist and warp. Three figures rise out of the solid ground like demons crawling out of hell. They are entirely draped in black, radiating a toxic, suffocating aura of pure, concentrated killing intent. The air pressure in the stadium instantly drops. It becomes incredibly hard to breathe. These are not monsters. These are the MKC Guild's elite shadow assassins. Level 80, S-rank executioners who have slaughtered thousands. The guildmasters in the VIP box instantly drop their wine glasses. The color completely drains from their faces. They recognize the assassins. They know exactly what is happening. The MKC Guildmaster has completely bypassed the Academy's security to publicly assassinate the F-class anomaly. Down in the dirt, the elite students are completely paralyzed. The sheer, overwhelming spiritual pressure of three S-rank assassins is unlike anything these pampered brats have ever felt. The A-rank noble who was just laughing at Yujin drops his glowing broadsword into the dirt. His hands are violently shaking. His knees buckle and he collapses to the ground, absolutely pissing himself in pure, unadulterated terror. Please. The noble stammers, tears streaming down his face as he looks at the assassins. "My father is a duke. Don't kill me. I'll give you whatever you want." The assassins don't even look at him. They step right over the crying, pathetic elites as if they are literally nothing but dirt. They only have one target. Their glowing red eyes lock entirely onto Han Yujin. The lead assassin draws a pair of jagged, poison-dripping daggers. He doesn't monologue. He doesn't waste time. He lunges directly at Yujin with speed that completely breaks the sound barrier. To the elite students, the assassin is just a blur of black death. It is an unavoidable, instant execution. But to Yujin's SSS-Rank system eyes, the assassin is moving in slow motion. Yujin doesn't step back. He doesn't draw a weapon. He doesn't even take his hands out of his pockets. He just looks at the incoming blur of absolute death, and he smiles. A cold, ruthless, terrifying smirk. He raises his right hand and casually snaps his fingers. The sound of the snap echoes through the dead-silent stadium like a gunshot. Instantly, the ambient temperature of the entire massive arena drops from a warm 70 degrees to absolute, apocalyptic zero. The very moisture in the air violently crystallizes into jagged ice. The ground beneath Eugen's feet erupts into a massive, blinding circle of glowing blue runes. The lead assassin freezes in midair, his daggers mere inches from Eugen's throat. His eyes widen in absolute mind-shattering horror. He tries to push forward, but his body refuses to move. The air itself has become solid ice. From the center of the glowing blue runes, a localized blizzard explodes outward. The sheer force of the freezing shockwave blows the other two assassins violently backward. The elite students scream as the biting cold instantly gives them frostbite. The reinforced magical barriers of the stadium groan and violently crack under the sudden, impossible pressure. When the white freezing fog clears, the entire stadium stops breathing. Hovering directly behind Eugen is an absolute god of destruction. Bak, the ancient frost dragon. It is massive, its wingspan casting a terrifying icy shadow over the entire arena. Its scales are perfectly cut, unbreakable blue diamonds that radiate a blinding, freezing light. Its eyes are bottomless pools of ancient, primal death. It lets out a low, rumbling growl that shakes the very foundations of the academy. The elite students are sobbing. They are pressing their faces into the freezing dirt, desperately praying to any god that will listen. The A-rank noble is literally choking on his own spit, completely unable to comprehend the nightmare towering over the F-class trash he just mocked. The lead assassin, suspended in midair by the sheer pressure of the dragon's aura, tries to speak. He tries to beg, but the absolute zero temperature instantly freezes the moisture in his lungs. "Sir." Eugen looks at the paralyzed, terrified assassin. He doesn't show a single ounce of mercy. "You came to my academy," Eugen says, his voice cutting through the freezing wind with chilling authority. "You interrupted my exam, and you thought you could kill me." Eugen gently strokes the frost dragon's diamond scales. The beast purrs, leaning into his touch like a loyal hound. The juxtaposition is absolutely terrifying. The most dangerous creature on the planet is acting like a house cat for an F-class hunter. "Freeze them," Eugen commands. The frost dragon doesn't even need to use an attack skill. It simply opens its massive jaws and breathes out a single, concentrated sigh of pure SSS-Rank frost. The wave of absolute zero washes over the three elite S-rank assassins. They don't even have the chance to scream. Their enchanted armor, their legendary weapons, and their very bodies are instantly and completely flash-frozen into solid blocks of transparent, unbreakable ice. Their faces are permanently locked in expressions of infinite, agonizing horror. Three of the deadliest killers in the entire country, completely neutralized in less than 2 seconds. But Eugen isn't done. The face slap must be absolute. The world needs to understand that he doesn't just command ice. He commands the apocalypse itself. Eugen looks down at his jacket. Peace, the tiny golden puppy, is poking his head out, completely unbothered by the freezing temperatures. Eugen taps the puppy on the nose. "Your turn, buddy. Clean up the trash." The tiny puppy leaps out of the jacket. The moment his paws hit the freezing dirt, a pillar of blinding, an apocalyptic red hellfire violently erupts into the sky, instantly melting the ice in the immediate vicinity. The frost dragon casually flaps its wings, stepping back to give its brother room to work. Peace transforms instantly. The 3-story-tall horned flame lion materializes, its mane made of literal undulating magma. The heat is so intense that the dirt beneath its paws instantly turns into glowing glass. The elite students are trapped in a living nightmare of fire and ice. They are watching an F-class hunter effortlessly command 2 separate gods of destruction. Peace slowly walks up to the 3 frozen statues of the S-rank assassins. He doesn't roar. He doesn't use a massive skill. He simply raises one massive, magma-dripping paw and casually taps the center assassin on the head. The extreme, instantaneous shift from absolute zero to SSS-rank hellfire is too much for the physical laws of reality to handle. A sickening, incredibly loud crack echoes through the stadium. The frozen assassin violently shatters into millions of tiny bloody ice crystals. Peace taps the second one, shattered. He taps the third one, shattered. The three elite MKC executioners are completely reduced to glittering, bloody dust blowing in the wind. Peace lets out a massive, deafening yawn, shrinks back down into a tiny puppy, and casually trots back over to Yujin, sitting obediently at his feet. The frost dragon curls its massive tail around Yujin, resting its heavy, diamond-scaled head protectively over his shoulder. Complete, suffocating, absolute silence descends upon the stadium. The A-rank noble who threatened to vaporize Peace is kneeling in the dirt, completely broken. His mind has utterly snapped. He is staring at Yujin with blank, hollow eyes, realizing that he just spent the entire morning mocking the undisputed god of the new world. The other elite students are shivering, not from the cold, but from sheer, primal terror. They realize that their stats, their guilds, and their noble bloodlines mean absolutely nothing. Hard cut to the VIP skybox. The scene is absolute chaos. The untouchable guildmasters, the billionaires, the elite recruiters, they are in a state of sheer, unadulterated panic. The vice master of the White Tiger Guild, the same man who threw a contract at Yujin's feet and demanded he join them, is choking on his own spit, completely unable to breathe. He drops to his knees, clutching his chest, his eyes wide with horrifying realization. He just threatened a man who commands an ancient dragon and a hellfire lion. He realizes he is a dead man walking. The other guildmasters are frantically screaming at their bodyguards, demanding to be evacuated immediately. They are terrified that Yujin will look up at the VIP box and order his monsters to burn them all alive. The absolute peak of society is running around like terrified rats on a sinking ship. Yujin stands perfectly still in the center of the destroyed arena. He doesn't look at the crying students. He doesn't look at the shattered remains of the assassins. He slowly tilts his head back and looks directly up at the one-way magical glass of the VIP skybox. He knows exactly who is watching. He knows the MKC Guildmaster is staring at a monitor somewhere. Buzdibor Borsirich is completely paralyzed with fear. Yujin smiles. It is a slow, predatory, terrifying smirk. He raises his hand, points two fingers directly at the VIP box, and mimics firing a gun. The message is crystal clear. The ultimate face slap has been delivered. The elite hierarchy is officially dead. The F-class anomaly didn't just survive the ambush, he completely wiped out their strongest weapons without lifting a single finger. The stakes have fundamentally shifted, and Han Yujin is no longer the prey, he is the apocalypse. The ultimate face slap in the Academy arena sends a shockwave that completely shatters the foundation of the country. The MKC Guild is finished. The noble families are utterly humiliated. But there is one entity left in the country that still foolishly believes it holds absolute authority. The government. Deep inside the heavily fortified underground bunkers of the Capitol building, the president and his top military generals stare at the aftermath of the stadium massacre on their secure monitors. They don't see a young man who just defended himself against illegal assassins. They see a walking, breathing weapon of mass destruction that they do not control. A stray dog holding the leashes of two apocalyptic gods. To the politicians, power that cannot be taxed, chained, or ordered is power that must be eradicated. He is a national security threat. The five-star general declares, slamming his heavy fist onto the war room table. No single citizen is allowed to possess SSS-Rank military assets. Those monsters belong to the state. We will confiscate the beasts for the glory of the nation, and if the F-class boy resists, we will execute him for treason. They mobilize the entire National Guard. They do not send a police squad. They send a literal army. Thousands of heavily armored soldiers, dozens of combat helicopters, and the government's personal squad of elite S-Rank national defenders completely surround the S-Rank Awakener Academy. They lock down the entire city sector. The sky is filled with the deafening roar of military engines, completely blocking out the sun. Yujin walks out of the Academy's main gates, casually petting Peace in his arms. Sabatrine with the massive frost dragon looming silently behind him. He stops at the edge of the courtyard. A fleet of military tanks has their heavy cannons aimed directly at his chest. The five-star general stands behind a barricade of glowing magical shields holding a megaphone. Han Yujin, the general's voice booms across the courtyard, dripping with self-righteous arrogance. By order of the president, you are hereby declared a Class 0 national threat. You are in illegal possession of state-level weapons. Command your beasts to submit to our handlers immediately. If you take a single step forward, you will be vaporized by the combined might of the national military. The government actually believes they have the upper hand. They look at their tanks, their guns, and their state-sponsored national heroes, Han, and they feel a false sense of absolute security. The elite academy students watching from the reinforced windows hold their breath. Even they know this is a death sentence. But Yujin just laughs. It is a dark, echoing, genuinely amused laugh. He looks at the thousands of soldiers pointing guns at him. He looks at the sweating general hiding behind his pathetic magical shields. The sheer blinding arrogance of these people is almost impressive. They think primitive human laws apply to a man who can literally freeze the concept of time. "You brought toys to a god's domain," Yujin says, his voice perfectly calm but carrying enough weight to make the front line of soldiers visibly flinch. "You want my monsters? Come and take them." He doesn't even need to give an order. The frost dragon simply exhales a lazy breath of cold air, instantly flash freezing the barrels of every single tank in the front row. The military panics. The general raises his hand, preparing to order the execution strike that will inevitably end in the absolute slaughter of his entire army. But the world has a different plan. The universe itself intervenes. Before a single shot can be fired, the bright afternoon sky directly above the capital city violently shatters. It doesn't turn red like a standard dungeon break. It turns into an absolute, suffocating, pitch-black abyss. The artificial light of the city instantly dies. The air pressure drops so violently that the military helicopters lose altitude, crashing into the streets below in massive explosions. The national disaster siren doesn't just blare, it wails like a dying god. The general's face drains of all blood. He drops his megaphone. The military soldiers lower their weapons, turning around to look at the horizon in pure, unadulterated horror. Hovering directly over the presidential palace, the very heart of the country's government, is a portal the size of a small moon. It is an S-rank dungeon break, the absolute pinnacle of apocalyptic disasters. A calamity that requires the combined forces of every single guild in the entire nation just to survive. And it is happening right on top of the arrogant politicians who just ordered Yujin's death. Massive, shadowy tendrils the size of skyscrapers begin to rip their way out of the black portal, crushing the surrounding buildings into dust. The ground shakes with a magnitude 9 earthquake. The national destiny is officially at stake. The country is exactly 3 minutes away from being completely erased from the map. The military formation instantly breaks into chaotic panic. The soldiers who were just threatening Yujin are now screaming for their mothers. The S-rank national defenders, the supposed heroes of the state, are trembling in their boots, realizing that the monster emerging from that portal is something entirely beyond human comprehension. The general falls to his knees. His arrogant bravado is completely shattered. He looks back at Yujin. The military needs an army of S-ranks, but all they have is an F-class boy and his 2 pets. Yujin doesn't panic. He doesn't run. He looks up at the massive, world-ending black portal tearing the sky apart, and his system interface violently detonates with a blinding blue light. Yujin smirks. The government wanted a demonstration of why he is a national threat. They wanted to see the true power of his monsters. The ultimate stage has just been set, and Yujin is more than happy to give them a front-row seat to the apocalypse. The S-rank portal completely tears the sky in half. From the pitch-black abyss, the dungeon lord descends. It is not a monster, it is a walking extinction event. The Abyssal Titan, a towering, grotesque behemoth of decaying flesh and dark magic, dwarfing the tallest skyscrapers in the capital. The 5-star general screams his final, desperate order. The entire national military opens fire. Thousands of tank shells, artillery rockets, and bunker-busting missiles rain down on the Titan in a deafening, blinding barrage. The explosions chain together, turning the sky into a sea of fire. The smoke clears. The Titan doesn't even have a single scratch on its armor. It raises one massive, rotting foot and casually stomps. The shockwave instantly vaporizes the entire front line of the military. Tanks are crushed into flat metal discs. Helicopters lose power and fall from the sky like burning insects. The government is forced to play its final hand. The top 10 S-rank hunters, the absolute strongest awakeners in the entire country, the untouchable, arrogant elites, charge into the war zone. They unleash their ultimate attacks simultaneously. A blinding storm of S-rank holy magic, lightning, and elemental fury strikes the Titan's chest. The Titan doesn't even roar. It simply swats its massive hand. The shockwave shatters the air itself. The top 10 S-rank hunters, the pride of the nation, are instantly wiped out. Their indestructible armor shatters like cheap glass. They are thrown violently through concrete buildings, coughing up blood, their bones completely pulverized in a single hit. In less than 60 seconds, the military is annihilated. Mas and the strongest elites are dead. The country is exactly 3 minutes away from complete and total destruction. The politicians in the underground bunker fall to their knees, weeping in sheer, pathetic despair. The national destiny is over, until a small, calm anomaly shatters the chaos. Directly in front of the advancing abyssal titan, a sleek, glowing blue portal slices through the air. The terrified, bleeding soldiers on the ground hold their breath. Stepping out of the portal, wearing the exact same cheap, unbothered black jacket, is Han Yujin. He doesn't look at the screaming elites. He doesn't look at the dying S-ranks. He casually looks up at the towering titan and cracks his neck. "You guys really make a mess out of everything," Yujin mutters. He raises his right hand. He doesn't borrow stats this time. He doesn't hide. He unleashes the full, terrifying might of the SSS-Rank system. Come on out. Dinner is served. The space behind Yujin violently shatters. 5 colossal pillars of apocalyptic energy erupt into the sky. On his right, a blinding vortex of absolute zero freezes the air as the ancient frost dragon descends, its diamond scales gleaming with ancient death. On his left, a pillar of melting magma erupts as Peace, the 3-story horned flame lion, materializes, its jaws dripping with literal hellfire. But Yujin isn't done. The shadows beneath his feet violently expand, swallowing the entire city block. From the pitch-black darkness, 3 brand-new SSS-Rank shadow beasts rise. A colossal, 6-eyed shadow wolf that breathes localized black holes. A terrifying armored shadow serpent whose venom melts the fabric of reality. And a towering, 4-armed shadow knight wielding twin greatswords of pure dark matter. The government officials watching the monitors stop breathing. Yujin doesn't have a couple of pets. He has a world-ending army. Yujin points a single finger at the abyssal titan. Kill it. It isn't a battle. It is a one-sided, utterly brutal massacre. The frost dragon breathes a concentrated beam of absolute zero, instantly flash-freezing the titan's massive legs and trapping it in place. The titan roars in panic, but peace is already in the air. The flame lion crashes into the titan's chest, sinking its magma-dripping fangs directly into the monster's heart, burning it from the inside out. The 3 SSS-Rank shadow beasts swarm the paralyzed titan. The shadow wolf rips off its left arm. The shadow serpent melts its right arm into a pool of toxic sludge. The shadow knight leaps into the sky, raising its dark matter greatswords, and brings them down in a devastating, blinding flash of black light. The abyssal titan, the ultimate boss that wiped out the nation's military in a minute, is violently, brutally decapitated. Its massive head crashes into the ruined street, sending a shockwave of dust across the city. The unstoppable disaster is completely eradicated in less than 10 seconds. The dust slowly settles. Yujin's 5 apocalyptic gods stand behind him, perfectly obedient, waiting for their next command. The intersection is dead silent. The surviving military soldiers drop their weapons. The terrified S-Rank hunters stare in absolute awe. A massive convoy of black government SUVs screeches to a halt at the edge of the crater. The president of the National Hunters Association, with the most powerful political figure in the country, steps out. He looks at the shattered titan. He looks at the SSS-Rank army. He walks slowly toward the F-class trash he just tried to have arrested. The president doesn't speak. He doesn't offer a contract. He drops directly to his knees, pressing his forehead against the cracked asphalt, literally bowing in absolute, undeniable submission to Han Yujin. The entire nation's hierarchy is officially broken. Yujin looks at the bowing president. He looks directly at the camera, breaking the fourth wall with a slow, chilling, utterly arrogant smirk. In front of his eyes, the system interface violently flashes with a blinding crimson light. Hard cut to pitch black. If you want to see Yujin tear apart the global servers and face the rest of the world's S-Rank gods, you need to smash that like button right now. Share this video with your guild, drop a comment telling me which of Yujin's monsters is your favorite, and absolutely obliterate that subscribe button with notifications turned on so you don't miss part 2. The tutorial is over. The real slaughter begins next time.